welcome to our fourth Tour de Tools already. My name is Bart. I'm joined by my wonderful co-host Gauthier.
Hi, everyone.
Tour de Tools came into life, as some know, because Gauthier and me were both testing tools on a relatively frequent basis and discussing them. And this is basically the same, but then live on YouTube.
And sharing. And
sometimes joined with guests, as we will be today. Gauthier, yep. I'll let you introduce him.
So today, next to ourselves, we also have Freddy. So Freddy is a data engineer, data roots since 2019. He actually has a background in machine learning before that, so I think at university. Freddy is, as he called himself, Freddy for the colleagues, Frederik for the family. So up to you to call him all you want on the chat.
But if his mother is in the same room, you need to call him Frederik.
Right. Let's see. And today Frederik will be demonstrating Dagster. Dagster, sorry, my bad.
Dagster
would be nice as well. So it will be demonstrating Dagster, another tool for orchestrating. So let's see what it gives, and then we'll have a bunch of questions on that.
Oh, and there's another new tidbit.
Which is not on the screen.
Which is not on the screen. Can you put yourself on the screen?
I cannot.
He says he cannot, but I don't really believe it. But we have actually someone that is managing, like a sound/video engineer that is controlling everything. That is Batu, right? Thanks for joining us, Batu.
Yeah, thanks for joining, Batu.
Thanks for the invite, guys.
The way I understand it, he prefers the title DJ.
DJ Batu.
Exactly.
Voilà, Freddy, over to you.
Yes, okay. I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen? Probably not. DJ needs to enable it.
Yeah, exactly. Batu is currently enabling it.
Oh.
Here we go. Yeah, your screen.
Bart is missing. Do I wait or do I just start?
Oh, no.
Bart is there. Okay, yeah. So I'll be talking a bit about Dagster. In a nutshell, Dagster, the concept of Dagster will be quite familiar to you. It's basically an orchestrator similar to Airflow, but it does things in a slightly different way. I would say a bit more than slightly. Basically just does things in a different way, the idea being a more fun way. I looked a bit into what the company actually is behind Dagster. Apparently it's Elemental. It's basically a company founded by Nick, who was actually co-created GraphQL. So it's already a spoiler that Dagster has a GraphQL endpoint you can connect to, of course. But besides this, I really don't know much about. I saw somewhere they were well funded. I think in careers, yeah, whatever that means. But so I have no idea besides the technical stuff on how this stuff is happening, or how they are planning on making money. But either way, that's not my problem. I'll be first showcasing some stuff. So basically, I will just just start off with some code. If there is anything confusing or whatever, you can just.
So what is the main functionality it offers you?
Orchestration, similar to Airflow.
And orchestration, like, can you give a practical example? What would I like to orchestrate with Dagster?
Well, in general, I guess their primary use case, given they call themselves data orchestrator, is data pipelines. So you should see it in that context. But ultimately, this is really flexible. You can automate everything you want with this. You can also have sensors and stuff in case you want to do something the moment something happens and stuff like that. Similarly, as with other orchestrators.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And is in the context of Dagster, is it mainly like scheduling data pipelines, or what? How do you define the orchestration part?
Yeah, so there is actually it feels like scheduling is really just one of the things that it offers. Ultimately, the core concept, and it's the one we'll start off with, like in the demo, scheduling is really, I think, actually, let me check. Yeah, it's the last thing. Like the main concept really is a pipeline, which is similarly to an Airflow DAG. It's like a series of computations, one after another, are intertwined. So it's really like a pipeline you can run doing some stuff. And they basically gave you a lot of neat features to be able to do stuff so that you don't have to do it yourself or write that logic yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. So like in that vein, like I mentioned, the main concept is a pipeline. So the individual, so you have a pipeline here, like basically this is in case anyone wants to follow along later on, this is, I basically just git cloned Dagster, and there I just took their tutorial and stole some of that. So actually almost everything except for the script here prefixed with my is not done by me. Okay. They do it better than I could.
Yeah, quick question on the setup here, like how, because you're already kind of showing code and we're already a bit diving into like the pipelines and everything, like, but where does this get executed? Like,
yeah,
do you have like a web server? Is this like a completely different service that you need to spin up in your infrastructure? Like, what's the...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so actually I'll be it's really core of that. It's a core part of Dagster that like some of the infrastructure you can basically manage within your pipelines. So I'll go into that as we go along. But basically now I'm running it locally. In general, you have two different things you want to run when you want to do it in a cloud, for example, because obviously you won't do this locally all the time, and it's kind of pointless. And there you have Dagit, which I will show in like 2 minutes, which is their web server. And then you have a Dagster daemon, which just checks for schedules and sensors and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, but so conceptually, first, there is the concept of a pipeline, which just executes a chain of tasks. Task can be anything. It's just code. In Dagster, they call it a solid. So here's an example. What this one does is it just takes a file serial.csv, which is here actually. It's a CSV with some nutritional values about different kinds of cereal. And then it just logs the number of cereals that's in the CSV. So imagine for some reason, I don't know why, but we want to automate this. What you can then do in code again, you can define a pipeline where you actually use the task. And this is done in a way like you can really see the solid in the context of a pipeline and a task. You can see the pipeline as the overall function and the task as a specific function that you call, which is actually the same that you do here. So this will give you a pipeline called hello serial pipeline and will execute a task called hello serial for you. I can run this by locally in Dagit. So Dagit is, like I mentioned, it's the web server of Dagster, and you can... Did someone say something?
I heard something as well, but I don't think it was here. I don't know where it came from.
Yeah, it was my mistake.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, but so Dagit is the web server of Dagster. It's really meant, you can run this on the cloud, but the way I understand it from documentation, it's really also meant to run locally so that you can very easily test your pipelines. So to do that here, I'm just calling Dagit and passing it the file that we just created, or that was already there, but oh well. Which will give me a URL. Yeah, and so this is the Dagster UI. So this is the pipeline that we just created, hello serial pipeline, with a single task in there, hello serial. It's a bit boring now, but we'll make it a bit less boring later on. But so now there is a single task. a single solid. Let's call it a solid. And then we can also, in the web server, we can run this. Like runs, you would see like an overview of all the runs, but in the playground, you can actually hide. You can actually also run your pipelines locally. So you'll notice here you can actually specify a YAML where you can basically customize some things about your pipeline, but I'll go into that a bit later. For now, like we don't use this. It's just like a simple solid that just doesn't really do a whole lot. So I can run this, which will, this is, how do you call it? Like a waterfall diagram, I guess the name is. So here it's just a single solid. And here you can see the log, found 77 serials. Basically what happened here now is that Dagit simply ran the pipeline and that's it. And then the logs were shown and some statistics were collected. And given like this is really not magic, actually like here I have some code where I do the same, but in code. So I just import execute pipeline. So what I can do now is if we stop this, I can run Dagster pipeline execute. I think, actually I should just, it's in main, so I can just do Python hello serial and it will do the same.
Okay. Quick question on this.
Go ahead.
Like, because you're showing local development, which is super interesting, I think, especially for testing and then like iterating locally. Like, what would you see as the best way to do it? Because you just shown us like one, like, let's say UI way to do it and a more programmatic way to do it.
Yeah. Overall, I would say that the UI will probably, it stopped, of course. I would say that the UI overall is the best way because I know there is some, like, as I mentioned, like it really felt like you were supposed to do it here because the kind of stuff you can do here, you can, for example, when you actually run a pipeline, I run it again, launch execution. Like if, for example, you have like a slightly larger pipeline and it fails at a certain solid because you messed something up, like this will allow you to look at, you can just click on that specific solid, see what happened, and then you can just start re-execute. You can fix the bug, you can reload, and then just continue executing at the moment it failed, for example.
So I would take that approach. Using for local development using the UI. Okay.
Indeed. Yeah.
The orchestration engine itself, is it fully implemented in Python?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I mean, all the code I saw was Python. I've delved a bit into the library.
When you run this pipeline that you now created, does it run in its own isolated environment?
Yeah, that's a good question. Which I was also going to talk about later, but I can talk about it now as well. So in Dagster, actually, I can open the docs, but I'll explain this just like that as well. In Dagster, you have two separate concepts. One is launching a pipeline and one is executing. So what we did here was execute it. We can also launch it. What that does is it first launches it, which basically provisions infrastructure for it to run on. So that could be a Docker image, but it could also be a Kubernetes job or whatever, like sky's the limit. You can, by the way, write your own launchers as well. So you can customize this. And then in there, you actually execute the pipeline, which is like traversing the solids and doing the work.
Right.
Yeah. But so this now is just within, locally within the same process as well. Like one of the launchers would be to just start up a new process to run it in. You have different ways to do it. Actually, that's something I find really cool to Dagster, that you can basically customize where it runs, and that you can create your own launchers as well. Very extensible. Okay. Okay, so this is like a very simple example. The first I was going to show next was actually serial pipeline, apparently this one, voila. Yeah, okay, so here it's basically the same. I commented it out so that it wouldn't be like a blast, but actually this is the exact same as before. But here now we're also sorting and then like logging the most caloric cereal, which is a separate solid, and it actually takes an input. So in this case, it's cereals, which will be like we can look at the pipeline here, which is the output of load cereals. So in this case, it's a list of dicts, I would expect. So that's that exact variable. And then it just it logs the largest one, and that's it pretty much. So I can again run this.
Do you have something with serials, Freddy?
No, it was Dagster must have something with it because it was the tutorial that showing off. Yeah. I'm just a messenger. Yes, yeah. So this is like the exact same. Like we have a pipeline. What I like is that you can just pass it in here, and it just kind of does what you expect it to. And here we have a pipeline with two separate solids, where the input of this is passed to this one.
So questionnaire, which is pretty interesting, at least compared to Airflow, is like I see here. So in Airflow, you have to basically declare task, and then you have to explicitly declare dependencies, right?
Yes.
In here, you're doing both just in code. So you're really just saying, I need this output, and I'm going to pipe it in this input as an input in this function. Two questions. Would it also work if you would do it in the two-step, or is it just working because you're calling a function inside a function?
Do you want to ask your second one first?
Yeah, if you would store, and then the second question is how far can you go with this? Like, let's say you really write a super long if-else statement. Is it going to parse that? And what's the limit there that you can reach on Dagster if you hit that limit? Yeah.
Okay. So the first one is you can just do cereals equals load cereals, and then you can just pass it in here. This works as well. Let's do it. Nothing can go wrong during a demo. Voila.
All right.
Related to the second question, I haven't seen any limit to doing this. Actually, there's some more advanced use cases that I should show. Actually, like right after this, I'm showing one where it's a bit more complex. I don't know if there's a limit. I haven't figured it out. I haven't gone that deep.
Okay. Because could you? I'm just wondering, like, could you, for example, create a function that would, like, create that logic for multiple things, and then use that function in the serial pipeline, and it would also parse the downstream functions?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, but my next example might answer your question. Otherwise, we'll have to re-explain.
Let's see.
Yeah, but so like executing this one, I mean, I can do it again, but it kind of does what you expect it to. This time it's already a bit more fun because you actually see more than one solid, and apparently strawberry fruit wheats is has lots of calories in it. What you haven't asked, which is actually very important as well, is these solids, they can actually execute in different environments. So imagine, for example, you have your run launcher, which actually just provisions something somewhere for you to execute your pipeline in. But then you have executors, so you could execute these solids on Dask, for example. And then your execute pipeline would actually run your solids individually in Dask, or in like Celery, for example. There's different ones, and I think you can also write your own here. But so what that means is that data from here, it's not super straightforward to put over there. Like this could run on different machines, is what I'm saying, or in Dask or whatever. So what it does here is it basically, by default, it does it in memory if it allows it to. But you can also, for example, say, especially when you're dealing with larger data sets, like passing data like this in memory, it's maybe not what you want. So what you can also say is, for example, write this to, like in between, write this to S3 for me, for example. The way it does this is using IO manager. It's like an abstraction of Dagster. By the way, this is also like how you would do it. I don't know why they're asserting here. but that doesn't matter much. So for example, what I did here was I wrote my own IO manager, which would use Spark to write and read data in between those solids. So if you're running it on Dask, for example, like passing data from one Dask task to the next, you can do using something like this. Okay.
That's nice.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, but again, maybe I'll...
If you're say, by default running in a distributed way, then it will serialize it and then pass it to the next process.
Yes. Actually, by default, it will just pass it in memory, which I guess only works if it's in the same process. So I think if you're going to do it distributed, you would have to specify your own IO manager either way. Dagster does have a bunch of pre-configured ones. That's not what I needed. Okay, that's fine. IO managers built in. Yeah, so one in memory, just over the file system works as well. And then you have like some custom ones where you pickle it to S3 and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, another question on this, because like to me it sounds a bit like they're mixing everything, which is so orchestrating, like scheduling stuff and putting things together, but also really execution in the sense that you can really, I have the feeling you could really write
the business logic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's your opinion on that? Because usually, at least what we try to do, I would say, is to kind of decouple that and say, like, we're gonna make sure our stuff runs and runs correctly, and we're gonna create, let's for example, a Spark project, and then we're gonna orchestrate that and put the different parts together inside an Airflow, or in this case, inside Dagster. Do you see? What would you recommend there, or like, what do you see, or what are they recommending? To put everything in Dagster?
Yeah. So related to that, actually, I wanted to cover that at the end of my demo, but
sorry.
you're ahead of me. But so yeah, like I fully agree there. Like by default, like the first thing I thought as well is that we're basically interleaving business logic and orchestration, which doesn't sound like an awesome idea. Of course, in practice, you can just, instead of actually executing this, you can do other stuff. You could, for example, like run an ECS task or start up some Spark submit something, for example. But it also changes, like some of the Dagster features are more difficult to use than, for example, imagine like we Spark submit something to some Spark cluster. Then this logging, it doesn't work. So this is like a context object from Dagster. And when you use this for logging, that means that like first of all, it works nicely within Dagster, so you will see it here and blah blah blah. But you can also customize it on the pipeline level. So here you can, if it loads, did I stop running it? Maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, if you do remote execution, as you just said, you would probably log where to find this, right? Like you would in your Dagster say, by the way, let's say we're on AWS, we use EMR. The EMR logs will be located there. I mean, you can get that when you launch a job, right?
Yes. But I don't know. I'm not sure how straightforward it is to then integrate it within this like logging, Dagster-based logging. That's my main problem with it.
These are just functions. So like if you you can structure them in a way that you can separate out these concerns.
Yeah, but it's just like, I just want to know their take on it, because it's a big point of criticism from the beginning, let's say on Airflow, is that they were also mixing everything, and it's.
But
like,
I think
you can blow up your instance pretty quick.
I think there the challenges with let's say at least early days Airflow was also that like your execution, the logic that you executed was so tightly interwoven into the execution engine that you very quickly ran into the limits. Even just very simple things like dependencies that you needed, and you had your own versions and stuff like this. And here that's already seems to be tackled. It seems to have learned from that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and also because this is then a bit our perspective on it. Now that I thought about it, the Dagster, what they would do if we actually want to run something on EMR, for example, you would use the EMR step launcher. So what this would do is for each solid, it would create an EMR step, and it would just run the code that's defined in the solid in there.
All right. Okay.
And then you can use context and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then again, of course, you're a bit using your business logic.
All the way DAX, or you get a lot of nice things out of the box.
Exactly.
Yeah. And let's say that you have one of these steps is an external thing that needs to be run. Let's say it's something that you build in Scala or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you integrate something like this?
Yeah. So there is what you can do. Well, essentially, you would just, for example, you mean as in maybe I have some Scala code, not in an existing like ECS task or whatever. Like I just have some Scala code here that I want to run.
Within your pipeline, you fetch some data, you store it somewhere, and then this external thing needs to run on it before you can go on to the next thing that is defined in Dagster.
Can you repeat? You dropped off for a second.
So let's say you have some data that you ingest with Dagster. You maybe do some transformations on it, and then you store this somewhere, and then you have this external function, logic, whatever, that needs to run on it before you can continue with your pipeline in Dagster.
Yeah. Like if it's already on some sort of infrastructure to run, then you would just use that. If it's like some other Python repo or something, I would I think the easiest approach is to just include it in this repository.
If it's like a Python package, you import it here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
There's also some stuff, for example, to run Scala-based Spark pipelines, where actually I can also go there. Spark Solid should point me there or not. Voila, here it is. Where you, for example, you say create Spark Solid. So here you're not specifying your own solid in this way, but you would do something like, I mean, I didn't research this, but it should be something like my Spark Solid equals create Spark Solid. And then you can, and then this is a solid that you could just use everywhere else. And here you can actually specify things like the jar it should use, the main class it should start, stuff like that. Okay. Yeah. And you can write this yourself as well, of course. This is just a function that creates a solid that I would expect. I think, voila, that runs a Spark job. So this is also Spark submit, actually, I think.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, what did I want to go to next? Yeah. Okay. This is a good one. This serial.csv, it's hard coded. We don't want that, of course. If you go all in on Dagster, actually here it's even if you go like 20% in on Dagster, you get something for this. It's I don't know the official name. I think it's like a configuration system. Yeah, well, it's what it is in my head. So here I have another pipeline, and this one is the same solid, but instead of here I just specify the serial.csv myself. Here I am actually specify a configuration where I say I expect this solid to be configured with a CSV name, and then I use it using the context. I refer to it here, which gives you the serial.csv name or whatever. In practice, you could also then point to like an S3 path or whatever. This doesn't matter much. It's just a string, and do it like that. So to show how this would fit in, this is again the same solid. This is also the same. What I can do then, and this is configurable pipeline. Voila. Let's go there again. Voila. Here it is. I already tested it, so it's already there. But so what you can do is specify your configuration when you execute a pipeline. So you'll notice here that shows it actually most clearly, maybe. So here I have, again, that execute pipeline function that executes a pipeline. And one of the things you can pass to it is a configuration. So here we are specified. Here it's like a dictionary, Dagit and the Dagster CLI actually are able to read it from YAML, which would just convert it to this format. But so what you do is, did someone want to ask a question?
What would happen if you don't provide a config?
In Dagit, it will not allow you to run, I think. Yes, voila. Let's see what it would do here. Let's see. It fails. I think you can also, no, maybe not. I think you can set defaults.
Yeah, but I mean, I would guess default somewhere. Yeah,
yeah, indeed. I would expect as well. Maybe if this is, yeah, I would expect that there can be some default, but I haven't tested it myself. But so what you can do is you can define, basically what you do is you define your execution your pipeline configuration for a specific pipeline instance. And then with that, you can check in. Yeah, okay, I stopped it here.
Yeah, got a question.
Go ahead.
Really? From NCLS, can a pipeline depend on two other pipelines? Question.
I'm not sure if there are interdependencies between pipelines. I think they're separate. Yeah, I think they're separate. What you can do is you can, I guess one way to do it, but I don't know whether Dagster would want us to do it this way, is the moment a certain pipeline finishes that you like update something somewhere, like maybe like you recorded or something. There's actually also success hooks so that you can like have your own custom Python code in case it succeeds. And then you could have your other pipeline have a sensor that looks at whatever it is that your success hook would update. That's one way.
Yeah, loosely coupled then.
Nice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Already getting creative, Freddy.
Quick
Yes.
question on this configuration, like, or maybe you're going to show this afterwards. But can you have things? So, concrete example, like something pretty much everybody uses inside Airflow is to get the current date. Like, how can you get a bit, like, let's say, dynamic values? Do you have to write some Python code yourself to get that in the first step and then feed it to the next step? Like, do you have to be explicit about it, or do they provide some mechanisms there?
I guess the easiest way, like you want like are you thinking in terms of if you had a schedule, you want the date of the schedule?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It will go into that in the scheduler.
Okay.
There is an example there. Yeah. But so here, like this is really what you define like by hand. I mean, I guess you don't have to, but the way I understand it, usually this is predefined. You can also, by the way, this is an interesting one. You can have separate configurations for each environment. So here it's just a CSV name, of course, but if this was a CSV path, like it could point to the test CSV for test and to the prod CSV for prod.
Okay. Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah, indeed.
So same pipeline, different configuration, basically.
Exactly. Indeed, that's the idea. And note that then your separation between the environments, you would define them in the configuration of your pipeline execution, but nowhere here is anything mentioned about test dev, test staging product. So that's quite cool. And yeah, so this does what you expect it to. So we pass the serials.csv there, so it just does the same thing here. But you'll see this, like if you're going into Dagster, you'll see this kind of stuff all over the place, basically. Okay, let's see. I think, yeah, in the CLI it does what you, yeah, you can also run this in the CLI. Actually, I didn't tell you. Let's see here. I don't recall the commands. Let's see here. Execute pipeline help. But you can basically pass the YAML, which I also haven't copy pasted from there. But you can specify the pipeline executes. Yeah, but either way, I haven't copy pasted it, so it's not worth much. But you can, of course, also run this in the CLI with the YAML. You can, which you can then do also, yeah, like wherever you want, like in a Bash script or something. Okay. Actually, now we're at the scheduler part, which relates to your question you had earlier. So here is scheduler. So indeed, in case you want to schedule, what you can do, what we do here apparently is we pass a date directly in the solid. Like I mentioned, in general configuration, it will be a lot more. I don't think you can even customize the configuration within the schedule. I think like just the plain use case is to add it as an input. Anything that changes, you could add here, and anything that is predefined on the environment, on an environment basis, then maybe you could define in the config.
Okay.
So what we do here is we specify, we just use it, basically. It's the exact same, but for some reason we want to say that today is a specific date. The same pipeline. Go ahead.
The second argument actually holds the value of the date. Is it inferred from? Is it lazy evaluated? Or how do you know that the second argument that is passed contains a date value?
Because we defined it that way. So also in the schedule, you'll see that we are just passing the date as the first value. Okay. What you can do, by the way, that's maybe an interesting one. Here you can define your input, which is a list of input definitions. So an input definition, you can actually specify a name, a specific type, and you can also specify a description and like random metadata and stuff like that, default values apparently as well, where you could say this is the date of the schedule, for example.
So if I got this right, environment configuration goes into context, whereas dynamic configuration goes as extra arguments.
Yeah, indeed.
And the input definition that you were explaining, you can then see it as sort of a help text in the UI, probably.
Yes, I would expect so. We can try it. My date, name equals date of the scheduler, and then my date. Let's see. Tag it.
I probably would have had to Google already 10 times.
Yeah, actually it failed. Let's see.
Okay. I was already feeling bad about myself.
Date is not okay. It's just because this name is not legit. Scheduler date.
Okay.
Full invalidation. But we're closer. Date. That is not one of the solid input defs.
Yeah, the date argument.
Yeah.
You mean yes.
First scheduler date, right?
Yeah. Okay, I'll rename this to that then, because it's also fine in the code. Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
Okay, thanks. Okay, yeah. So here we have a date. Okay. Didn't provide a description. Hold on. Date for when the date when the solid runs. Actually, it's not that. It's close enough. Actually, also, let's check. You should be able to reload. I have the date when the solid runs.
Cool.
And you can also specify outputs. And what you can also do is provide asset materializations. So, for example, maybe you have something here. Maybe this one like updates a table somewhere, like in your data warehouse or in your data lake or whatever. You don't want that to be returned necessarily. Like maybe no other solid depends on it or whatever. What you can do then is tell to Dagster that this is an asset that you materialized. Asset materialization. So what you do here is you yield this. And then you can again provide a bunch of metadata. I guess you could maybe go from the way I understand it. It's really quite flexible, but it's not really doing anything with it currently. but I expect it could even open doors for a data lineage if you want to. If you want to do this within the same tool, again, of course, then we're binding data lineage, scheduling, and business logic to the same tool.
Right.
That's, yeah, maybe I can showcase this as well.
Really teasing the demo gods here.
It's not my tool.
Yeah, but it worked the first time.
My data set.
Would have kept it there.
My data set. So basically, this is here I am saying I want, like, obviously I didn't do anything here, but like you would have a Spark pipeline that updates a table, then you can say, it's this table, my data set, and then provide a description, and again, like a bunch of other things as well. Metadata entries, yeah, so it's very, very
pretty cool.
vague, high level, extensible, let's call it that, which we can run. Yes, okay. Yeah, okay, but then we need to, yeah, I was showing schedulers. So of course I need to, let's see if I can specify it here. I'm not sure if I can, yeah, inputs. Okay. Because I need to pass a date here. Date 2020. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. But actually, I can just show the scheduler. Yeah, and for that, actually, I'll also show a bit more. So actually, I can do it in Dagit, but what I wanted to show as well is the Dagster daemon. So by default, Dagit, the web server, it's really only responsible to show stuff. That's its main use case.
Okay.
And then, like, you can, for example, locally, you can like execute pipelines. Like you should already, I would already have questions whether I would want to do this in the cloud, like launching runs, especially if it's done in process, because in general, your web server is not super secure compared to your Dagster daemon, which could be completely behind the scenes. So what you can do is you can run the Dagster daemon, which I will run here. Yeah, so this by default, your Dagster daemon and Dagit as well, actually, they run, they store a bunch of results. For example, how a pipeline ran, whether it succeeded, when it ran, what the logs are, stuff like that. And all of this is stored in different repositories, let's say. And you can, by the way, also change all of these. So what you have is, let's go there in your Dagster instance. Here you have like run storage, event storage, schedule storage. And for example, run storage, it contains like your run results, which you could store in SQLite. You can store it in PostgreSQL. Like I think basically, as long as it's relational, it's fine. I don't know if we can customize this. I haven't seen it, but it would be cool if you can. And most of it you can customize. So I think if it's not now, maybe they'll allow you to do it later on. Let's see. But so by default, it stores everything in Dagster home, which is why I'm specifying it here. And then I run the Dagster daemon. Voila. Okay. And now I'll also run Dagit. And this is also Dagster home. This is also a bit cool, in my opinion. So Dagit and the Dagster daemon, they don't, or at least as far as I can tell, they don't speak directly to each other. So for example, actually, let me run it first. Dagit. Voila. Okay, let's see if it runs. Nice. Okay. So but wait, is there a schedule? No schedules found. Hold on. Yeah, okay, I know why. Wrong directory. Okay, now we have a schedule. Dagit and Dagster, the Dagster daemon. By the way, I don't think I mentioned it, but the Dagster daemon is responsible for everything else without viewing stuff. So for example, actually like looking at the schedule and waiting until the right time and then launching something, that's something the Dagster daemon does. Also, like if you want to queue your tasks, your solids or your solid runs, you can do that, and that's the Dagster daemon. Like Dagster daemon basically does everything you expect it to. Backfilling, scheduling, sensors, voila, that kind of stuff. Also, therefore, Dagit, and then Dagit actually figures out like about a pipeline run, for example, by just querying the database. So in this case, like the Postgre run database, for example.
Right.
So in that way, they never actually talk to each other, as I understand it.
Okay.
So there's some separation there. There was only one solid in it, I hope. Yes, perfect. Okay, with our custom date. And then I can actually, so yeah, maybe I should explain the schedule as well. Why was there already a schedule when I didn't define it? No, there is none. Okay. Yeah, okay. So a schedule, you define like this, like basically everything in Dagster, you define like this, like with a decorator. So here we specify the pipeline name, when it should start, when it's, the execution time, date and the time zone, blah, 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 just the usual. In this case, daily schedule, so it's daily. And what I do here is you return the config that is used for the pipeline. So apparently you can specify it like this if you want to do it in Dagit.
Okay.
And in this case, it takes a date. I guess it takes a date because it's a daily schedule. I expect if you do it, actually, if it's weekly, I expect it's just the first day or the week of the week, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's intuitive, huh? I think.
Say again?
It looks very intuitive. Like
Yeah.
at least like you read it in the schedule, you know what it is. You don't need to start looking it up on what does this cron thing mean.
Exactly. So what I can do now is just do this. Nice. Okay. So now we have a single repo with the pipeline in it.
Maybe
and go ahead.
question for you. Backfilling, is it a manual step or is it something that you do programmatically?
Currently, I'm doing it manually. I expect you can do it programmatically as well. I would expect there is some function for it that you can call, but currently I'm doing it by hand. Actually, like if I enable this, at least, voila. The next tick is tomorrow. Maybe then it backfills it, but I haven't waited a day to figure it out.
What did you put as a start date? Because I would have expected that the daily schedule in the past would actually backfill. Right.
This date.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if I want to backfill, I can do it here, launch partition backfill. Then here I can specify which partitions I want to backfill. So maybe here I want to do, let's say this month. It's not specifying. Was it? Wait, I have to do it here. Okay. What I can do here is do this month like that. And then run. Voila. Let's see here. It's 0%. We can look here. And I think it should just update automatically. Let's wait a second. Okay, let's refresh. I can also look in the logs, by the way, on when it's picking it up.
Where you're just selecting the text.
The pipeline is failing. I guess one of the changes I did.
Yeah, okay, but that's fine.
Fail. Wait, but I will put it back. This was it, I think. Yeah. Okay, voila. Yeah, it still shows it. And here it shows like solid, like total pipeline, and then solid based execution times. Here they all failed because that's useful information too, if you know this.
Cool.
Yeah. And now we have materializations as well. So if you go to assets, well, it doesn't show anything there.
No, because it failed, right?
True. Good point. Yeah, probably. Although it did show that
I think it's telling you I'm going to create a materialize, but because it failed, it's not there, right? I mean,
maybe. Yeah. Okay. But either way, this is how scheduling works. Quite straightforward. What you can also do is do something like this, because it's daily and it's maybe you want it by week. Then you could do something like this, where you specify a function that takes context and then just returns a Boolean, and then you can specify it here whether it should execute.
All right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Here. I see there daily schedule. Can you go more granular?
Yeah, I think so. Let's see which ones we have. Yeah, okay, that's not super useful because it's defined right below if there is any. But I think from what I recall, daily is the most hourly. Never mind. I was gonna say it was the most granular one I saw, but apparently not. Yeah, hourly it seems.
Does that mean that you can?
You cannot do it every 45 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't see it. Maybe there is something else that this calls that you could just use directly. Monthly. Okay. Yeah. No, never mind. You can define a cron.
You can define a schedule with a cron.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Clear. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. And this is my demo pretty much. Seems like I went past time a bit.
And how complex is it to set this up in a production setting?
Yeah, so I would say what you want to do is you want to have your Dagster daemon running and your web server running, and then that's like however you do it, like Kubernetes, ECS, whatever. So that's if that's complex, then it's complex, but usually that should be fine. And then by default, like you'll want to basically specify like different storages. For example, if you have your Dagster daemon actually running somewhere, you want your log storage, for example, to actually maybe go to like the log storage of your cloud provider, for example. So what you do then is I didn't show this, but what you would do is you would define your own YAML here. Actually, I have a run storage here where I'm using a custom run storage. So you would have something else here where you would say I'm using CloudWatch. If you do it in AWS, of course, I'm always talking about AWS. And actually also here, there is one which you can use. Yeah, and except for that, it's like sky's the limit. And there is nothing else you really need.
It looks like the documentation is really, really nice. What's your experience there?
Yeah, that. Yeah, and actually also the quick search, like I've been using it like here because I was so confident that if I looked for something that I would find it. It's really nice.
That's great.
Yeah, and everything I did here was done from the tutorial, everything I showed you, except for one thing I didn't cover, but that's fine. But so this is also a really nice one if you want to get into it.
Another question that I have is, as we talk about clouds and integrations and about context, can you easily, because we showed stuff that you can show to the user, but let's say you have some passwords and things that you need to pass around, do they have support for the different cloud parameter store or secrets manager?
Yeah, you mean like here, for example, or actually in your pipeline?
Yeah, I mean both, right? Let's say you launch a job somewhere else, really a bit remote, and you need to give it credentials to be able to do what it needs to do. Like, how can you pass this without having it in code somewhere? Can you, for example, reference to some secret on, for example, on Kubernetes if you execute it on Kubernetes, or on the cloud provider? Or do you know? It's just a
No, I don't know. What I expect is that in your cron job, you can like if you do it in Kubernetes, for example, you can specify it in your job what it should look for. In the Dagster YAML here, it's just environment based. So what you would do wherever your Dagster daemon runs, you'll make sure that those environment variables are set. I would think. But what you can also do is get them programmatically, yeah? Like using
Right.
Boto3 or something like that.
inside a solid then.
Yes. Actually, no. That was the last one. It was the thing I did myself. I forgot about it. But so what you can do is you can have resources. It's another concept in Dagster. So here I'm using again context, and I'm saying in my solid that I want an S3 resource. And basically, this is already defined in Dagster AWS in the library. What it is like the S3 client from Boto3. So if you just do like Boto3.client S3, that's what you get, and then you can use it here.
Okay, clear.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool.
Nice. And if you have to choose tomorrow for a clean slate, Airflow or Dagster, what's your verdict?
Yeah, I think currently, like the thing we talked about in the beginning, like the separation between orchestration and business logic, it would mean I would need to rewrite a bunch of the business logic or sacrifice a bunch of the Dagster features. And I also don't know like how well this performs in prod. I expect there will be some gotchas. It's quite new. So like if I would really need to support this, I would probably stay safe for now. But in my personal projects, I would play with this.
What is your feeling with the omega separation?
Well, I believe it's good to have separations, but it looks like it's just like Airflow. It's for you to decide, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah, ultimately.
If you have a project small enough that you can benefit from all the features, then feel free to do so. My opinion personally is that you should not mix all of this because it also makes the tool really irreplaceable. And
yeah,
like,
exactly.
One tool, one job. I think it's a bit.
In the end, if you dedicate yourself to it, you get a lot of nice things out of the box.
Definitely, I agree.
And in the end, like you don't want to be dependent on a tool, but like in reality you are. I mean, migrating everything to a new tool will always take time.
Yeah, but what I mean is, like you already have a lot of complexities associated to each of the tool that you might be using behind it, and then like putting yet another abstraction in front of it is gonna. Whereas, for example, if you would execute everything, each of your steps inside the Docker on Kubernetes, then it's very standard. You can run everything you want, and generally, what I would go for, even in an Airflow setup, that's what I'm saying.
It's an interesting discussion. I feel it's a bit like the separation between HTML and CSS, where it was all very cleanly separated, and now with these new frameworks, you have everything is very close together. So that because like when you touch something, like it's very rarely completely separate in practice. Like you want to, like you're developing something to be running as to be running as part of a pipeline. So
agree.
Anyway, but interesting, super interesting. Yeah, Freddy.
Yep.
I prepared a very, very small demo of playwright-python. It's already on the screen. I need to let me in the background doing a little bit of window management. I think we're okay. Playwright-python. Well, Playwright is actually more than Python. Playwright, its tagline is it enables reliable end-to-end testing for modern web apps. And then I already, before this session, got a complaint that why is this not data related? But the way I found this was that I was looking at the issue for which I need to build a scraper, where you typically end up with something like Selenium, especially when the value you're scraping is something that has to be evaluated by a JavaScript engine. Because if you just let's say, do a curl on the raw HTML, you won't get the actual value that was evaluated. So you need something like a browser in front of it. And what Playwright actually does is that it gives you a uniform API to use either Chrome or Firefox or WebKit-based browsers to basically do whatever you want in your browser, be it headless or non-headless. I'm talking about playwright-python, but they also have implementations for JavaScript, TypeScript, C#, and Java. And as you see from their tagline, like my use case, scraping is not their main focus. But it was very easy. So playwright-python is super easy to install. You see, it's a two-liner, pip install playwright, and will give you a CLI, the playwright CLI. And you can call playwright install, and then it will actually install the browser binaries for you. So I already did this. And what we then can do is we have a nice tool, playwright code gen. So typically you need to, let's say, basically by trial and error, to navigate a bit through web pages to see what steps you need to take to get there. And this will help you get there. So it will open up a browser for me now. So I have here a Chrome browser. And I have here next to here the Playwright Inspector. And it will actually record what I do in the browser. So I'm going to show you. So so yesterday it was, as everybody knows, Doge Day. So I'm going to see what the value of a Doge is. CoinDesk. So I'm going to search for CoinDesk. You see this being recorded here. So I'm go to google.com, search, whatever. Now I have a dialog here. I agreed to all the terms of Google search, and I've read them all, of course. And also here the dialog, you see, is recorded. I go to CoinDesk, and voila. And oops, wait, sorry. And then my example is not completely correct anymore because I was at I think Dogecoin is here. So let me click this. Voila. And then we end up on the Dogecoin site, and then we're actually at coindesk.com/playwright /price/Dogecoin, and all these steps have been recorded. So what you can do then is basically copy paste this code and start to make something that is relevant for you, and it will basically replay all this. And I'm gonna
can you select stuff? Can you go, because if we're talking about scraping and everything, I guess you want to extract information?
Yes and no. So what I actually want to extract that's what I'm gonna show is this element.
Right.
But what you see is, so what it extracts, you get an XPath, but it is a very specific. So it actually selects the box with the text value 0.3.0, which is not what you typically
So it's
want.
not, okay. So it's not fetching the ID or anything, for example?
No. So what I typically use for that is the selector gadget. It's a Chrome plugin, but I'm gonna get there. So what I have here is basically how do I get where I want to be. So now, of course, it's a very simple example, but typically, like if you're, for example, in a single page application, you have a lot of steps. For example, a login step that you need to go through. And we copy paste this code, and I have my VS Code setup here. I simplified it a little bit. So actually what I do here is I go to coindesk.com. Then I go to the Dogecoin website, the subsite. And there, so what I do there is that I use a query selector on the element with the class price large. And there's only one in this case. So how do I know this to make the story completely?
You looked in the source, right?
I looked in the source, but I actually used this selector gadget. Let me check if I can easily show you how. So CoinDesk Dogecoin. So what I use typically for this is the selector gadget, which gives you a way to select stuff. And here I see what the XPath is for this. So this is a very simple one because there are no other elements that also have the class price large. But if I would select something that is not that easy, so here, for example, like this title, this element has the class title call, but others, you're also selecting other things here. So I can actually make the path so that I ignore these things. So the only thing I'm selecting now is price, and for this I need to use this X path.
Okay, that is great.
But the actual price value is a bit easier. It's just a price large class. So when we go to our test code, so we have here we ended up on the page. So the page object holds the last state of the page, and we do a query selector there on the class price large, and we just say give me the text content of that element, and we print out the value. And then we're going to test if it actually works. Oh, whoops.
920.
Environment issues probably. Which Python? Ooh, I'm not. It looks in my editor like I'm in my virtual environment, but apparently I'm not. Fun stuff.
Nice.
Which Python? Yes, that's the correct one. Ignore the last minute. I'll retry.
We'll get it out afterwards.
Python test.py. And what you see now is that we are replaying what we described in code. Wait, I'm going to close this one. It's a bit confusing.
So few questions there. At least I'm not
because it was a bit confusing. I'll rerun it because I still had the inspector open, but we don't need it open. So rerun it, and we basically follow this whole trajectory. And then fetch the value, and then it closes the browser. So it ran again, and we see here Doge value is at 0.31 and something. To the moon, Gauthier.
Yeah. We have a question. No, I will ask that afterwards, Nico. So my question is, like, because we replay stuff, can we also store this kind of video of? So let's say I write something and I say, like, I expect, for example, the value to be this, right? And then it's not, or it is. Can I watch the replay? Like, can you record the web page?
For what use case?
So if you do UI testing, let's say tomorrow we discover a bug because your test fails, like you would. So
really UI testing. So that, let's say in a PR you run this and you visually see, is this okay to go to production?
Well, I mean, you would get the result, but let's say it fails for any reason. Like this tool is not going to be able to tell you failed with a 404 while I was expecting this or that. I mean, you could probably call this.
Well, actually, for end-to-end testing, this is super interesting. Like you say, like this trajectory of a user of my application goes through all the steps, and at some point it fails.
Yeah, but can you see, because we're testing visually stuff? Can you visually see what went wrong?
So I think I don't know how flexible it is. So what you have the option to screenshot a page.
Okay.
So you could actually, like, if you are doing design stuff, like in your PR request, that you actually post that screenshot to the comments of a PR request, so that you can actually use that before you approve something.
But also, yeah, I'm thinking maybe user interaction, like really see the stuff and say, like, yeah, this is what I expect also from a flow perspective. Like, okay, it matches on paper, but it also looks nice and everything.
So actually recording, I don't know, probably if you can screenshot. So, but what you will typically do when you actually run this during testing, you will say headless is true, and it will run everything for you, still in this browser engine, but you don't see it. Voila, I think that is roughly the gist of it. Short and to the point. But I think it's very interesting. So I've quite a bit, I think more than I would want experience with Selenium. And I find Selenium very flaky. And I did not have this feeling here.
But I think, like, I mean, Selenium is at least partially flaky, that I agree, but I think it's just like we're talking the web. Like, things changes all the time, and like I see like a really good use case for the replay stuff. Like you can really, if there is a change in a page, like you just rewrite this small part, right? It's very cool.
Yeah, and I think testing wise for web applications, for something that we don't do on a daily basis, but this makes a lot of sense because it allows you to really do end-to-end testing. Like,
So-
how would a user navigate my application? And is this okay? Is this what we expect? That's
So,
super interesting.
Yeah, Nico is saying that you can actually do this in Selenium. I've also used Cypress testing in the past.
Yeah, that's very big in.
And
testing.
that also allows for recording.
Okay.
And then another question from NCLS is: do you have new glasses?
No, they are old ones that I didn't wear for a year.
All right.
And I now specifically for you put on.
Okay. Great.
Are you happy with it?
I'm super happy, and I think NCLS is as well.
No, but I find the concept very, very interesting. Like if you just look within our domain, where is this super interesting is robotic process automation, like manual steps when you that you need to do to automate something, which there are still a lot around where this could play a role. Even though it's not the main focus.
But it could be. It could also be like, let's say you want to download some report data. I'm thinking like we have use cases where you actually need this. You need to go physically on a report and do this by hand. So you could use something like this, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Can you easily do this in like a Docker container, or does it? Can you do that easily?
Yeah, very easy. There exists a Docker container. They provide an image, and there is also a GitHub action that you can use.
Okay.
So it's really built to be as easily used as possible,
Nice.
and also very loosely coupled. So like it's it just goes to a web page in the end.
Right. Okay.
Well, cool thing. Even though I got some complaints that it was not data related enough.
It is. No, by the way, yes. Other questions in the chat? Not so far. So if you guys have something to ask, now is a good time.
We have quite a few new turn tools coming up. And I will quickly see it, which is the next one. So the next one is actually an exciting one. It's the 28th of April. It is a reagent with Jason Gauthier. Reagent is the reinforcement learning platform from Facebook. And Jason is the main developer there. And so reagent, some people might know it as Horizon. That was called. It has been renamed relatively recently. So I'm looking forward to that. And I hope to see you all there.
Yes.
Freddie, thanks a lot.
Yep, my pleasure.
Nemo. And see you all next time.
See you next time.
See ya.